This is Crime Classics. I am Thomas Hyland. I'm going to tell you another true crime story. Listen. A man writing. Listen closely because it's a quiet sound, an intimate sound. The year is 1795, and the man who is doing this quiet, intimate thing is named Peter Droot. He is writing his will, making with goose quill and parchment his bequest to his children. When he is done, unknowingly, he will have made certain the death of his two sons. And now he is done. Now he has made certain. And tonight, my report to you on the Axe and the Droot family, how they fared.
Crime Classics, a series of true crime stories taken from the records and newspapers of every land from every time. Your host each week, Mr. Thomas Hyland, connoisseur of crime, student of violence, and teller of murders. Now, once again, Thomas Hyland.
The place is Heidelberg Township, Dauphin County, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. During the closing years of the 18th century, Heidelberg snuggled against a bend of the Susquehanna. Its chief product was people, who were sent downstream to Harrisburg and overland to Philadelphia. So great was the margin of export over import that I can no longer locate Heidelberg Township on a very good map of Pennsylvania. However, during the time that it flourished, it was noted chiefly for its rocks, which were used all over the county to build churches, sheds, barns, and gravestones. The Droot family lived in a stone house, and Peter Droot was so wealthy that he was buried in a coffin imported from Bavaria, which was decorated with cherubs painted on porcelain and other sad scenes. His shroud was of genuine black Westphalian lace. His lawyer was of 100% Saxony stock and came from Philadelphia.
And to my daughter Elizabeth, I, Peter Droot, do will and bequeath the sum of £1,000. However, the sums I have already advanced to her in the amount of £800 shall be considered a part of this legacy. And to my sons, Francis and Peter, I leave the residue of my estate. But in the event of the death of either of my sons, without issue...
And his daughter Elizabeth, pure product of Heidelberg Township, was moved.
Some father I had, to leave to his own true daughter a measly £200.
You have done a deception to me.
Deception? How?
To tell me you were the favorite of the old man's children and would inherit the money. This is deception, to get me to be the husband of you.
John.
What?
I did not mean to deceive you.
Get thee away.
I begged you to believe me. Get thee from the chair and take my hand.
The likes of you, a spouse to the likes of me.
I'm sorry. I
said it, Elizabeth. Get thee away.
That vile man, that father to me, to have done this to his daughter, that I have to wait until the death of my brothers to get to his wealth. That I have to wait until the death of my brothers to get to his wealth. That I have to wait until the death of my brothers.
Yes, I heard it.
And that as each one of them would die, I would get £500.
Yes, I heard it. Elizabeth.
What, husband?
How well do you love your brothers?
Francis is the oldest, and I can recall one day at the quarry when he struck me with a stone. This scar.
And the younger one, Peter.
Who was named for my father, and as cruel as my father, and who became my father's favorite in my stead. Who once called me a name I shall never forget.
Were they to die?
I am sister to them. I should weep. In your arms, husband. And you would make me smile again.
Smile now.
In your arms?
Yes.
John and Elizabeth Hauer, Pennsylvanian lovers. He, a stonemason who had more epitaphs at the tip of his chisel than any stonemason in the county. She, noted for her scar and her elderberry jelly. The old man just growing chill in his coffin from Bavaria. And John and Elizabeth, daughter and son-in-law, were getting ready to lay the rest of the family beside him.
I think we should start with the younger one first.
Why, whatever are you talking about?
He's better off dead than alive, anyhow.
Why, whatever are you talking about? Put me down. Put me down.
John put Elizabeth down and got on his horse. He rode to Harrisburg at a clip which can only be described as furious. Now, in Harrisburg, there lived a friend of his, an elderly gentleman who distilled things and bottled them. It is said that this gentleman could do a thing with toadstools and snake venom that you wouldn't believe. The gentleman, whose name is recorded in state annals as Uncle Hess der Kleine, was finally ducked in a pond for 12 minutes by the authorities. Well, John bought a few ounces of evanescence from Uncle Hess and rode back to Heidelberg Township. And the next day, in the stone quarry, this is what happened.
And how is your brother Francis these days, Peter, lad?
I don't see much of him these days.
He's busy counting his money, I suppose, and yours.
He is a farmer. He farms.
A question, lad.
Aye, John?
Have you had the fancies lately?
How do you know about that?
Your sister, lad. She told me. How since a lad you have been seeing strangies and ghosties and whatnot.
And what of it?
Nothing, lad. Nothing.
It is true that I have been visited.
And me, too. Last week I was lying beneath the stars near the barn. There was a wailing, and I look about me. Such a beautiful fancy she was. And she was crying.
Go on. Go on, John.
Of such beauty. And I reached out my hands to her, and her image was smoke.
Wondrous.
I can see her any time I wish it.
How?
I have a thing here, a potion, a small bottle of it, prepared specially to lie under the stars to see this wondrous, beautiful lady.
Was she indeed so beautiful?
I am unschooled. I have not the words for her beauty.
Please.
What, lad?
Give me of that vial. Let me taste.
She stirs your imagination, lad.
Yes, oh yes.
You can almost see her in your mind now, can you not?
Even while you talk, I try to imagine her. Please, give me of the vial.
Here, drink it.
Yes.
All of it. Good lad. Tonight, lie down under the stars and see what will happen to you.
Thank you, John.
The bottle is good no longer. Throw it away, lad.
Poor lad. 18 years old and given to fancies. Now, all of us know that many lads of 18, even today, are given to fancies. But young Peter Droot was very rich and lived in Pennsylvania. And it was a rare moment indeed when he wasn't beginning or ending a fancy. And, too, this, we must remember, was the era of potions to conjure up most anything, from rain to a lady made of smoke. So, young Peter Droot had everything going for him that night: youth, imagination, and potion. He went out under the stars and lay down near the barn, just like his brother-in-law told him to do. What happened then may be described as a good night in the country gone to waste.
Oh! Oh, my stomach! Ooh! My stomach! My stomach! My stomach! Oh! Oh!
That rooster crowing really upset schedules in old Heidelberg Township that night. People and animals looked out of the window and wondered what ailed that rooster anyhow. It was too early to get out of bed and too late to go back to sleep, so they gave ear to the commotion. Through the din rose the wails of Peter Droot, who had seen no fancies but was writhing with a terrible ache in his stomach. His brother Francis brought him back to the house and applied an old Pennsylvania poultice, which relieved the lad no end. So, the next morning in the stone quarry.
And all that happened, John, was an ache right here. A grievous ache.
Poor lad. Lad,
Yes?
when you lay yourself down under the stars, which way were you facing?
Toward the east. Toward Bruder Gansel's farm.
I should have told you.
I did it wrong.
Oh, 'tis my fault. You faced the wrong way. However, come here. Walk with me. Sit yourself down here by this pile of rocks.
Here?
To your left a wee bit. Very good. Now close your eyes and think hard.
Of what?
Of beautiful things. And silently I will say a magical thing. And I will go from you a little and behind you. Peter, keep closed your eyes.
Say it. Say the magical thing.
Aye, right now. Men, all of you, the lad Peter Droot is buried beneath the rocks. He is dead.
No. No, I am not. The slide of rocks did not touch me. I heard their sound, and I leaped, and I...
What a relief it is to me. Oh, how happy I am.
But why have we come here, John? To the loft of the barn?
I have another way to show you the fancy.
How?
This rope I have here tied to the rafter. Place it about your neck.
Very well. Do not let me fall, for the rope is not long enough to reach the floor.
Is the rope tight enough about your neck now, lad?
Tight enough? For what?
For this?
John? The rope broke, John. Please don't be frightened. I'm not hurt. I'm not hurt at all.
And as long as Peter stayed alive, John couldn't collect any of the legacy, which is why John sat in a hayloft, head in hand, and pondered. Then John thought about an axe, and he pondered no more.
You are listening to Crime Classics and your host, Thomas Hyland. Patrolman Kirk reported in from Box 23 at 1:42, on time to the minute. His next call was to come from Post 7. He never made it. When they finally found him, he had been shot to death. Was it suicide or murder? The steady, detailed work the real police do will again be evident on CBS Radio's 21st Precinct tomorrow evening as the world's largest police force tackles the case of Patrolman Kirk and Post 7. 21st Precinct is broadcast on most of these same stations. Be at Post 7 tomorrow. And now, once again, Thomas Hyland and the second act of Crime Classics, and his report to you on the Axe and the Droot family, how they fared.
A few notes about Pennsylvania as it neared the end of the 18th century. It was already a state to be reckoned with. General Washington had camped there during the winter of 1777-78 at a place known as Valley Forge. In the town of Chester, Mad Anthony Wayne drilled his troops in an unusual manner in the courthouse square. The western part of the state was rife with forests, game, trout streams, and beneath it, the silent flow of oil, to be discovered 50 years later in Titusville, of all places. A dominion of wealth, discovered and as yet undiscovered, of history, made and as yet unmade. To prove my point, a person by the name of Barbara Fritchie, who was born in Old Heidelberg Township, had not quite yet been born. But across the street from the house where Barbara would first see the light of day, where her grubby little fingers would reach for her first needle, across the street lived John and Elizabeth Hauer, man and wife. As is our prerogative, let's look in on them.
The rope broke.
What a pity.
It seems I can't kill him. Something always goes wrong.
You always were a hasty man, ruin things.
In the barn this morning, I did everything neatly.
The rope broke.
It was a new rope.
And both of my brothers still live.
I thought of something.
Both of my brothers still live. And both of my brothers still live.
Would you listen, spouse?
I
thought of an axe.
And what did you think of an axe?
How it can smash things.
What things?
Tables.
And cups.
Chairs.
And chickens.
And skulls.
And skulls. And husband?
What?
Will you do it?
It will be done.
By whom? By you?
By a man I know and his friend.
And after it's done, what shall I have?
You will have no brothers.
And in their stead?
Money.
Husband.
Yes?
Lift me, spin me around.
Aye? What is it?
To talk with you, Charles.
Come in, man. To talk with me?
Aye. Where's your friend, Patrick?
Has the talk money in it?
Aye.
Before or after the occasion?
A little before and much after.
Patrick, wake. Wake. Wake, Patrick. There's money in it. John Hall,
Aye.
come into here.
Good evening to you, Patrick.
Now, John Hall, speak to the both of us.
My wife's brothers are alive. If they were to die, my dear wife would receive all of their money.
And, is this the end of it?
A very great sum of money.
And?
And this axe I have brought.
It cuts deep.
Aye.
Well, Patrick? Uh-huh. Well, John Howard? Wait. It is enough. For now. Patrick, get out of bed, man.
There were frontiers in those days. As a matter of fact, our country was more frontier than anything else. And the people, those who survived, were the fittest. I would like to describe two fit people of the time. Charles McManus.
Which is my name. I am 42 years old, I stand 6 inches above 5 feet, and my weight is close to 200 pounds. Once in Killarney, I killed a man with my fists. I fled to America. In New York, I killed again with my fist. I fled to the backwoods of Pennsylvania.
Patrick Donegan.
That's me. I'm much too slight to kill with my fists. I must have steel in my hand. There was a woman in Donegal County. Her death brought me here, where I am now.
Very fit persons indeed. Killers. And attuned to the wilderness. They moved quietly.
The older one sleeps there, he said. Hold him, Patrick. And the young one sleeps in there, he said. Hold him, Patrick.
Are you a fancy?
Now we can go.
Oh, now I'll do the dancing.
Come to me. Come to me.
They are dead. They are dead.
Outside the night is warm.
And there is moon.
And there will be us.
Gently. In a moment. John, hold me. Hold.
They came, the townspeople, and they knocked on the door of John Hauer and his wife Elizabeth. And they brought him and his wife to the house where Peter and Frances Droot were lying. Elizabeth fell down upon the floor and wept bitterly. John sat down and made no remark. And this is the tableau, 1 hour after the murder had been committed. And the townspeople had found that nothing had been plundered from the house. And the townspeople knew that only John and Elizabeth would profit from the death of the brothers. And an axe had been found, and a townsman knew it to be the axe of John Hauer. Then John Hauer made a remark.
I did not do it.
Then they asked him who did do it.
2 murderers.
2, they asked him. How do you know it was 2, John?
I hired them.
Hi, what is it?
So now it is, Charles. Open.
Hey, who are all these people? What people have you brought with you?
The man holding the torch there is Ebner. By his side and holding another torch is George. And the next to him, neighbors and neighbors and neighbors. They have come after you and after Patrick.
For what?
For what you have done.
For what?
For the murder of the brothers of my wife.
You hired us, John.
I told them that.
Patrick, wake up.
In June 1798, a trial was made charging the three men and Elizabeth Hauer with murder.
I have never been one whose life has been governed by the lust for money. Only love and sweet solicitude for my husband. If it has been my husband's immodesty to have committed murder, I do love him still.
I committed no murder.
He committed no murder, he says. He gave me an axe. He gave me money. I returned them and said, do your dirty work yourself. Didn't I, Patrick?
As sure as you're born. I heard you refuse the man distinct, and I heard him muttering that he'd do it himself.
Gentlemen of the jury, as your judge, I now charge you. The murder of Peter and Francis Droot rouses the indignation of the county. Its atrocity is unequaled by anything of the kind hitherto known in Pennsylvania. The execution of the murders was as horrid as the motives were base and groveling. The keenest sensations must arise in the minds of all good men and worthy citizens.
The judge then went into particular detail of all the evidence that had been given and committed the case to the jury at 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. At 7 o'clock in the evening, they returned a verdict. John Hauer, guilty. Charles McManus, guilty. Patrick Donegan, guilty. Elizabeth Hauer, not guilty.
I'm pleased. I'm so pleased. Goodbye, my husband.
The guilty were all of them hanged on Saturday, July 14th, 1798. Elizabeth Hauer mourned for a respectable interval, then married again to one Obed Fanistock. The Fanistocks moved to Maryland, to the growing community of Cumberland, where they bought a house and a well and sold water to settlers moving west. And it all happened in old Heidelberg Township, which I can no longer find on the map.
In just a moment, Thomas Hyland will tell you about next week's crime classic. The Droot Family, tonight's crime classic, was adapted from the original court reports and newspaper accounts by Morton Fine and David Friedkin. The music was composed and conducted by Bernard Herrmann, and the program is produced and directed by Elliott Lewis. Thomas Hyland is portrayed on radio by Lou Merrill. In tonight's story, Mary Jane Croft was heard as Elizabeth and Clayton Post as John. Featured in the cast were Herb Butterfield, Sam Edwards, Paul Frees, and Charles Davis. George Walsh speaking.
Good evening. This is Crime Classics. I am Thomas Hyland with another true story of crime. Listen. The good ship El Capitan used to sail the bay between Oakland and San Francisco in the 1870s, mostly in the fog. Its skipper was Captain Bill Tranchell, and he was known among the ferry boat set as having a heavy hand on the whistle. He found any number of excuses for tooting that whistle, but the one excuse which he never forgot was the time he was entertaining Mr. and Mrs. Crittenden on the bridge, and an uninvited lady named Mrs. Laura D. Fair suddenly threw open the door, walked over to Mr. Crittenden, and shot him through his heart. Captain Bill Tranchell, it must be admitted, for once lost all control. And unwittingly gave the nautical signal for icebergs in San Francisco Bay, which caused much hoisting of flags and battening of hatches, but could not change the fact that Mr. Crittenden was lying face downward on the deck. So, tonight, my report to you on the incredible trial of Laura D. Fair.
Crime Classics, a series of true crime stories taken from the records and newspapers of every land from every time. Your host each week, Mr. Thomas Hyland, connoisseur of crime, student of violence, and teller of murders. Now, once again, Thomas Hyland.
San Francisco in the 1870s was coming of age. It was getting civilized. By this I mean that gentlemen who carried guns wore them beneath their coats, and the can-can could be viewed by mixed company. And mixed company was the theme of the day. It was a very romantic time, and a time of elegance, of crystal chandeliers reflecting swirls of silken gowns, and from another angle so did polished brass cuspidors. Already the names Barbary Coast, Nob Hill, Gold Coast, and Chinatown were becoming legends. And if we are to believe all we hear, Grandfather didn't have it so tough. If he chanced to look over a certain fence on a spring day in 1870, he would have seen this. A lovely lady on a swing, dipping, swooping, gliding, soaring. A lovely lady with a lovely name, Laura. Laura with a rose twisted in her hair. And on the ground, for
Isn't
Mama...
my daughter a pretty sight, Mr. Crittenden?
And Mr. Crittenden, late of West Point, Kentucky, and Virginia City.
Truly the fairest of the fair, Mrs. Lane. Bewitching. If I didn't know otherwise, I'd say she'd been bred in the bluegrass.
My daughter's first husband was from the bluegrass country.
Now, how about her second husband?
He never did say. There was no one around who would ask him either.
Oh?
He was forever shooting things, walls, chickens, various things.
Your fair daughter has lived a fulsome life.
Look at her up there, like a ladybird.
Hello, Laura. Up there like a ladybird.
You're going to marry my daughter, Mr. Crittenden?
I fear she still grieves for her late husband.
Her third husband was tragic. Poor Colonel Fair.
That's the one who blew out his brains, isn't it?
I wonder why. Mr. Crittenden.
Yes?
You're going to marry my daughter?
If she weren't still grieving for the colonel, why does she still bear his name? Why does she still call herself Laura Fair?
Why not? Look at her, swinging like she does. Have you seen a woman more fair?
No.
Laura! Laura, come down here. Oh, the grace of my daughter.
She is lovely.
About 32, going on 33, and she doesn't swing as high as she used to. Mr. Crittenden.
Yes?
Forgive me for being rude. I forgot to ask you. How is your wife?
In the best of health, thank you.
You must tell her soon
Mama,
that...
Mama dear, you get on the swing, Mama dear. Mr. Crittenden will give you a start.
Oh, some other time. Mr. Crittenden and I were just talking about Mrs. Crittenden, dear.
Oh, how is she?
In the best of health, thank you.
Have you told her?
I told her you bore her no malice,
What did she say?
that she likes you, too.
Oh, I'm so happy. Now you go home and tell her you want to marry me.
My dear Laura.
You go home and tell your wife you want to marry my daughter. Come along, Laura, dear. Let's tat.
So they went into the house and they tatted, Mama and Laura. And while they're doing this, let me fill you in with some background notes. Laura and Mama had newly arrived from Virginia City, where their family-style rooming house had netted them $45,000. During the years and the welter of collecting the rents, changing sheets and towels, and setting the board with succulents, Mama had gained and lost 3 sons-in-law. It seemed that fate consistently made her daughter a hard woman to be married to. Laura's 3 husbands, each of them, died. And as to our other principal, Alexander Parker Crittenden, he was a corporation lawyer with a wife and 7 children and 2 grandchildren. Once, hot and dusty and alone in Virginia City, he happened into Laura's house, made known his desire for a bath and rest. No sooner had he changed into fresh linens and had listened to Laura's tale of how she had become widowed recently than he became that weekend her star boarder. And, in turn, Laura and Mama were so taken with his quips and twinklings that they followed him to San Francisco. They took a house on Nob Hill, and there tatted and waited for a proposal of marriage. They understood the delay. They comprehended that Mr. Crittenden's wife was of a peculiar mold.
How is Laura, Alexander?
Fine, ma'am. Just fine.
And her mother?
Eager?
Eager?
Yes, ma'am. She wants me for her son-in-law.
And no wonder. You're a fine man, Alexander.
Thank you, ma'am.
And a good father.
I try to be.
And an excellent husband.
Yes, ma'am.
Such a man as you is hard to come by, Alexander, dear. I should miss you.
I should miss you.
Then it's settled. Laura and her mother will be our good friends.
But Laura wants me for her husband. She keeps asking me. And her mother, too.
Dear.
What?
Tell them no, but nicely.
I've told them.
Keep telling them.
You're a remarkable woman.
Thank you, Alexander.
To be friends with a woman who wants to take me away from you.
I respect ambitions and honesty. Laura has both. That she should love you has my complete understanding.
Ma'am.
Yes, Alexander?
I must tell you that you are a flower. Womanhood should be proud to number you among its sisters. How many's the time?
Alexander, we have an appointment for dinner tonight.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am.
What is it, Alexander?
Laura loves me, and I think I might love her right back.
Why, then, eat your heart out, Alexander. Now hurry, dear. We're going out to dinner.
Oh?
I've sent a message to Laura to meet us at Furbisher's for dinner.
Oh.
I do so enjoy watching her eat. She's so ravenous. Well, hurry. Hurry along.
Mr. Crittenden?
Yes, Laura.
Isn't today a pleasant one, though?
Every day is pleasant when I'm near you, dear Laura.
And last night, how wonderful. Sitting between you and your wife. What a wonderful woman she is.
I wish you two wouldn't like each other so much.
We both have the same consuming interest in life, Mr. Crittenden. You?
Laura,
Yes?
I must tell you that you are a flower. Womanhood should be proud.
When are we going to get married?
Soon.
Upon your honor?
Upon mine.
You're a liar, Mr. Crittenden.
Laura.
Therefore, I shall not see you again ever.
Laura.
I've thought it over, and that's the way
I
it is.
love you, Laura.
And you love your wife, too.
Oh, I'd die without you.
You love your wife more than you love me.
No.
Swear it.
I swear it.
Liar.
I mean it, Laura. You'll see. I'll get rid of her somehow, and I'll marry you. I'll make her see that I don't love her. I won't even kiss her anymore.
Swear it.
I swear.
I'll race you to the tree, Mr. Crittenden.
All right.
Come on. Come on, Mr. Crittenden. Come on.
After that, there were more foot races
When is he going to marry you, Laura?
Soon.
and much swinging in the garden.
Has he set the date for your marriage yet, Laura? Laura, come down out of there and talk to me.
And the patting session.
Mama,
What?
I'm weary of his excuses.
And one day, wearily, she wandered down Market Street. There was a shop on Market Street run by a fellow who specialized in four-shooters. Now, a four-shooter is the same thing as a six-shooter, but it's for ladies because it weighs 2 shots less. Now, this fellow who specialized in four-shooters was such a persuasive salesman that no sooner had Laura pressed her pert little nose against his shop window that he had her inside measuring her palm for pistol grips. When this chap let her go, Laura was the proud owner of a pearl-handled pistol, which this chap personally guaranteed. And that was in the days when a guarantee meant something. Also, you must be told that on the morning the purchase was made, Laura had been without a husband for 1 whole year. Laura had never experienced this omission since she was 18 years old. So, gun in purse, she took to following Mr. Crittenden around. One night, she followed the gentleman and his wife through the fog onto a boat called El Capitan. This was the ferry boat between Oakland and San Francisco. Its skipper, you remember, was Bill Tranchell, the heavy-handed fellow who liked to entertain on his glass-enclosed bridge.
A toast.
Well, thank you, Captain. Thank you very much.
To your very good health, sir. And to the health of your very charming wife.
And to yours, Captain.
Thank you, ma'am. This place is getting overrun with tugboats. That'll show 'em.
Well, shall we drink?
Go right ahead.
Ma'am?
Yes, Alexander?
Tonight, somehow, you appear radiant.
Oh, dear Alexander.
Ma'am, you're very dear to me.
Dear.
Captain, you don't mind if I kiss the lady?
Oh, you just go right ahead.
Ah, dear lady. Laura!
No, you listen here.
You said you wouldn't kiss her anymore.
I leave you for the moment with this note. Though he died face to the deck, Mr. Crittenden was not buried at sea.
You are listening to Crime Classics and your host, Thomas Hyland, and his report to you on the incredible trial of Laura D. Fair.
In 1870, San Francisco was a city where violence was commonplace. But this violence was by far predominantly of the species male slaughtering male, or male doing in female. So when Laura Fair shot Mr. Crittenden on a ferry boat, she practically invented a category and thereby caused a stir. It planted ideas in feminine minds where such ideas never dared to be. The sale of four-shooters skyrocketed, and somehow the sale of marriage licenses likewise. The episode on the ferry boat was a shot in the arm for the suffragette movement. Too, the entertainment business slumped, as many a husband spent more evenings in the bosom of his family. It was a city seething with unrest, with slow change, with static passion. It was a city whose entire attentions were focused on the trial of Laura D. Fair for the murder of Alexander Parker Crittenden.
There will be order in the court. You may continue with your testimony, Captain Tranchell.
There he was, kissing that lady over there.
I refuse to be referred to as that lady over there. I was his wife. No, you are not. I was.
Mrs. Fair,
Yes, Your Honor.
How do you explain you were Mr. Crittenden's wife?
I was. Not that woman over there. I refuse to be referred to as that.
You will get your chance to testify, Mrs. Crittenden. Mrs. Fair will answer the question.
I thought I was on the witness box here, Your Honor.
In a moment, Captain. I wish to hear why Mrs. Fair considered herself to be the wife of Mr. Crittenden.
Since the moment we were both born, our love was made in heaven and our marriage, too.
I warn the vexators that another such outburst may cause me to clear the court. Go on, Mrs. Fair.
Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
My feelings for Mr. Crittenden would have been profane had they not been made sacred in heaven.
Silence! 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 The Sergeant at Arms will bring forward immediately the parties that applauded.
I applauded more than anyone else, Your Honor.
The Sergeant at Arms will bring forward that lady.
I applauded more than her.
And will bring forward that man, too.
Oh, Judge, it was my fault.
Of course not, Mrs. Fair. You were not to blame for the disturbance.
Well, Judge, human nature could not stand the denial of the truth by that lady over there. It was I, indeed, who was married to Mr. Crittenden.
What is your name, sir?
Francis M. Hughes.
Did you applaud?
I stamped my foot.
Why did you stamp your foot?
I felt the compulsion.
Why?
I was carried away with what Mrs. Fair said, and I felt the compulsion.
I fine you $25.
Judge,
Yes, Mrs. Fair.
I will pay it.
You are dismissed, Mr. Hughes.
Oh, bless you, Mrs. Fair. Bless you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
And your name, madam?
Emily Pitt Stevens.
Did you applaud?
I said, good, good. And I put my hand down on the bench in front of me, so.
You are fined $25.
But I made no noise with my feet.
But with your hand, you did.
With my hand, I did.
You are fined $25.
I will pay it. Thank you, Mrs. Fair. And thank you. I rather believe you than that woman over there.
Mrs. Fair, you will have to draw heavily upon your bank if you will pay the fines of all who applauded.
As long as you fine them for cheering me, I will pay those fines.
Your Honor. Just a moment, Captain. I just wanted you to know what could happen, Mrs. Fair.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Captain, you may proceed.
And Mrs. Fair came in and shot him with a 4-shooter.
That's all. Thank you, Captain. You may step down.
Yes, I have the court reports here. And that's what they say. And if you think this was an unseemly way to conduct a trial, I have something else here. I'd like to read it to you. This is a consensus of legal opinion of the time, and I quote, "The trial was conducted in the main thoroughly and well, with somewhat less regard for the decorum of the courtroom than is customary in most eastern cities, though far in advance of the practice in New York City in this respect." Unquote. And now that we have resolved any uneasiness you may have had about the conduct of the trial, let's listen in again. Mama on the stand is an imposing figure. She wears brocaded black and a great veil that drops from her hat to her waist. Her feet, however, were cold.
Bring the lady a foot warmer. That cushion will do.
Thank you, Manette. I think that'll be much better, Judge. Thank you.
Your feet will warm up in no time at all.
Oh, I'm sure of it.
And now, what were you saying about your daughter?
I've always had trouble with her.
I know what you mean, being a parent myself.
Oh, not like Laura.
What do you mean?
Doctors, doctors, doctors. My daughter has tried to kill herself on numerous occasions. There's madness in the family. Besides, my daughter's second husband was mad. I don't think that helped. Grief and doctors and madness. I tell you, raising Laura was trying. But I think I did a pretty good job. Although my daughter is not sane, you know.
Not sane?
Crazy.
And doctors were called to corroborate, and this they did. Little-known facts about Laura Fair were brought to light and caused more nudging of elbows than applause. Some of her ailments, described by the learned physicians, had symptoms that weren't talked about very much in those days. One medico described the raving exhibition put on by Laura, a recounting of which held spellbound his students at medical college. Another doctor described a malady owned by Laura Fair so vividly in one of the trade journals that he was considered 20 years ahead of his time. When faced with these revelations, Laura accepted them by lowering her eyes modestly. Dr. Leonard Bifrosser, chief spokesman for the doctors, summed up medical testimony by suggesting strongly that Laura was unconscious when she shot Mr. Just a moment. That's what it says. Laura was unconscious when she shot Mr. Crittenden. Back to the trial now, and the lady who became Mrs. Crittenden by marrying Alexander in the city hall, somewhere in Kentucky.
It is ridiculous to believe there is madness in that woman over there. She's vicious, predatory, and since the moment she was thrown in contact with my husband, she pursued him, worried him, and pled with him to marry her. That this necessitated getting rid of me didn't worry her in the least. She killed my husband out of frustration and anger. That woman there!
The high spot of the trial was on a morning in November. The court had denied Laura permission to lie on her lounge, upon which she had reclined throughout the trial. So Laura has been made to arise and take the stand, was so sworn in, demanded and received a foot warmer, and said interesting things like this.
I told Mr. Crittenden to let his wife keep the furniture. I told him we could get new furniture in a new home, and that in every corner in each room we could kiss, and he could hold me in his arms in each chair, sit by me on the sofa, hang over me while I played his favorite march on the piano.
In the afternoon, she enthralled listeners with this.
And I remember well when Mr. Crittenden took me on his knee, put arm about my neck, his dear face close to mine. And he whispered, shall I say it, Jack?
Please do.
He whispered that he would cross mountains unshod, walk through storm uncovered to come to me. He said he cared not for hardship nor exposure, for every step he took brought him nearer to me. To the other and better half of his own soul, he would tell me. Shall I go on?
Please do.
The night it is said I shot him, I can remember only glass.
Glass?
Cold as the touch, and through it, a disagreeable and peculiar voice.
Did you recognize the voice?
That woman over there.
Continue.
I put my hand against this glass, and it opened, and I saw Mr. Crittenden leaning close to a woman and kissing her, and I felt myself slip into an awful pit of blackness. I do not remember how I got away from there, or what was done to me after.
Gentlemen of the jury, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
The accused will rise from her lounge and face the jury. The jury will face the accused. And what is your verdict?
Guilty of murder in the first degree.
Laura was led away to jail. An enterprising young reporter of the time, Garth Prebles, interviewed her in her cell, where he learned and had published the fact that Mrs. Fair had spent $12,000 in her defense. Chicken feed to what she spent on her second trial, which was in the amount of $30,000, and which broke her. Where this $30,000 went to is a mystery, since the second trial was not nearly so spectacular as the first. Captain Billy Tranchell of the ferry boat El Capitan somehow was not there as a witness. There was a new judge, too, who in later years became known as Kindly Judge Reardon, and a new jury, 12 men and true out of 400 examined.
And our love was a greater love than is given to most women.
That was the second trial, and that was Laura again. And this time, another verdict. Not guilty. So, after acquittal, she went on a lecture tour and told of her hardships. That was Mama, tambourine handler, advance man, and treasurer.
How did we do, Mama?
$1.85. When you lecture tonight, honey, pep it up a little. Promise Mama, will you?
I'll make it real peppy, Mama.
Mama passed her last tambourine one cold winter's night in Sacramento in the year 1889. But Laura lived on. She lived until the age of 82, after another husband and another long period of widowhood. Until the moment of her death, she insisted that Mr. Crittenden had only been her very good friend. And once, in a moment of mutual transgression, they held each other's hand. That's what it says, right here.
In just a moment, Thomas Hyland will tell you about next week's crime classic. Laura D. Fair, tonight's crime classic was adapted from the original court reports and newspaper accounts.